Hey guys, this is Gene Jensen with BassResource.com. Tonight's open mic night. We're going to do a question and answer, just kind of hang out and have fun. What we're going to do is I'm going to set my timer on my phone, and every 30 minutes I'm basically just going to kick everybody off and let other people come on. Or after a question, if you guys if you guys really would like to, what I'd like to see is people ask questions and then kick themselves off. So. Hold on. Let me mute my commercial over there on my on my YouTube. Anyway, so basically, ask a question. If you want to ask a follow-up question, I'm fine with that. But be considerate of those who are waiting. And if there's nobody waiting, get back on. It's just one of those things. I don't know how many people wait for this or how many people want to get on. But my idea is to try to do something like this to let as many people on as they want to, because there's so many weeks that people sit there and wait for the whole 2-3 hours, and I forget to kick people off to let them on. So it's all my fault. But anyway, let's see. First of all, let me kind of let you guys know kind of what's going on. Tomorrow I'm going to the FLW Championship, to the Expo tomorrow and Saturday, and so I'm kind of excited about that. I love to go to expos and kind of hang out and see what's new and see what little local tackle shops have new stuff and tackle companies, especially the FLW one, because a lot of times they'll have the local little mom and pop tackle shops and tackle companies come in and have a booth, and so you can see kind of the cool stuff that's around close by, and it's just right down the road in Columbia, South Carolina, so it's not a bad little drive. So we've got and it's crappie season, so for me it is. My crappie are starting to get into my trees and under the deep docks, and I've got 138 GPS points of standing timber out in the middle of Clark's Hill, and that's where all the big crappie get in the middle of the summertime. So, and Clark Hill is the number 13 number 13 lake in the country for crappie, and I don't keep them less than 10 inches, and I'll usually catch my limit in a good day of fishing. So it's a fun little lake. Anyway, we have on so far Tyler, Tom, is that Terry, Thier?
Yeah.
Terry?
Yeah.
Michael, and Bass and Assassin. Yeah, Bass Assassin, and I guess we'll get more people on later. Yes, one day. YouTube finally let me change mine from the old. When I first signed up for YouTube, somebody else was using Flukemaster, and they wouldn't let me sign up with it. So they finally gave me a URL that had actually the full word name Flukemaster on there. So when people type it in, it actually shows up as me. So that was pretty nice of them. They call it a vanity URL because it's still my main URL is still the old one, but that one automatically links to it. So. Anyway, let's start out. Who's got any questions? Anybody? I don't care what it's about.
So. I do.
All right.
Okay. So I don't have any GPS on my sonar, so I don't know how to find points or even ledges with it, or how to place myself for fishing it.
Yeah, and you want to do it without a GPS map? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What you do is you know how I taught myself? I went out into the middle of a field. This sounds kind of weird, and I pretended like I was in the water, and I looked at the land, and I said, okay, if this hill comes down like this and it's underwater, then that's a point. And so now that I'm on the lake, I look at the bank and I say, okay, there's a hill that comes down into the water, or there's a place where two creek arms come out. And where that hill comes down into the water, it will extend out further into the water. Now, the question is, though, are you fishing lakes that are man-made, or are you fishing lakes that are natural?
Natural.
Oh gosh, then that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Are they shallow natural with a lot of grass?
No, I mean lakes are going up to between 80 feet deep to 150.
Okay, and do you have any?
I live in Canada, so.
Okay, all right. So they're all glacial lakes and stuff like that. I guess you could still, a lot of the glacial lakes, you still can look at the bank and kind of get an idea of what's under the water right there in front of it. The biggest thing that you would look for is, hold on a second, I've got to do something with my YouTube. It's bugging me. Okay, biggest thing that you look for is like rock piles and things like that with your depth finder. So
Hmm.
you have a depth finder, but you don't have a map.
Yes,
So
exactly.
basically, you just run, at whatever depth you want to run, and as it comes up and rises, the way I used to do it without a map is I would drop a buoy as it started to rise, and I would drop a buoy on top, and then I'd drop another one on the other side, or I would go across it, zigzag across it and drop a buoy on the very top as I crossed it, and then as I went further out, I drop another one, and it'd give me the direction that point is running, and that's basically a point. And then I'd start fishing where I drop those buoys. And sometimes I'd catch fish, sometimes I wouldn't. It's just amazing. And then I'd remember in my head, or I'd draw it on a piece of paper, with the lake. A little ugly drawing that I did by hand. There's a lot of little tricks you can do, but those buoy markers will be your friend. Buy about 6 of them. I still have 6 of them on my boat, even though I've got all those electronics. And basically, you're just going along looking at your fish finder, and as it comes up and drops back down, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, that might be a point. So you whip around, you come back over top, drop one on top, and then go deeper and drop another one on top, and go deeper and drop another one on top, and just map it out in your head. That's how they used to do it anyway. So I hope that helps. And then little, it's just a matter of trying to draw it out on a piece of paper, or just trying to fish it. Another way to do it is with a Carolina rig or a heavy jig. Dragging it on the bottom, figure out what a Carolina rig or a jig feels like when it's falling. So I just drug it along, and it's all of a sudden falling. So it's falling off of a ledge or something like that. It's a challenge. It's a lot harder. It makes me wonder how they did it back then without maps, as hard as it is, and as how much time those professional guides back in the '60s before fish finders, and they bring in these huge stringers of fish. How much time they spent dragging a heavy weight on the bottom, trying to figure out what the bottom looked like. It's just a phenomenal. My father-in-law's dad used to guide during that period of time, and I see pictures of his stringers, and I'm like, my father-in-law say, well, yeah, he'd catch them on ledges out in the middle of the lake. I'm like, well, what? How in the world did he find them, first of all? Because he didn't have a fish finder at all. So, just phenomenal. But I hope that answered your question. The biggest thing is just use your fish finder and draw your own map is what I would suggest. And it doesn't have to be pretty, because you're the only one that needs to look at it. So, but good question though, really good question. I didn't know it was going to be this hard.
And use a lot of buoy.
Yeah, I do. I still use a lot of them. I'll mark a hump with my buoy markers just to kind of get an idea of where it is. Or I always have one sitting on the front deck of my boat under a strap that I can throw in the lake really quick. For one, when I get a bite way out in the middle, I want to drop where my boat was so I can go back and make that same cast. And another reason I have it, I'll drop it in the lake, is if I want to keep my boat still. I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I don't really have a visual reference on keeping my boat in one spot. I'll drop it so I can keep my boat in that one spot and work that area out really good, be it a hump or a point way out in the middle of the lake. So it's just my visual cue, and I drop it on crappie brush piles all the time when I'm crappie fishing. So
I use buoys every time I'm fishing. The lakes here in Florida are relatively shallow, and it's and then most lakes there's some weird characteristics. You may find that your lake doesn't grow any grass until you get to like 8 feet deep. Anything beyond that 9, 10, 11, it's too deep, doesn't grow grass. So when you find 8 feet, you drop it, then you look for the next. You either want the lake to stay at 8, or you want to gradually go up to maybe 6 or 7. And when you find that zone, then you drop a second one, and then you drop a third one, and then with your trolling motor, you go from buoy, and back again. And it's here in Florida, you can't. I don't care if you got 27 topographical maps. When here in Florida, you fish over grass to find bass, and that's how we use buoy markers all the time.
yeah, yep, no kidding. Huh? Cool. Anybody else got any questions?
What do you use on your crappie? Like, what do you use for bait?
I use live minnows. almost 100% of the time. I'm starting to get more into the jigs and playing around with the colors, because sometimes they want this color and sometimes they want this color. But I'll go to the when I'm fishing for crappie really hard, I'll go to the bait store and I don't even have to talk to them. I walk in with my bucket and they give me 5 dozen and I walk out. I pay for them and walk out. So, and when I'm with somebody, I usually ask for double that. I'll usually get 10 dozen and we'll go fishing. And it's just doing a jig is a lot of fun. It actually, for me, I consider myself real successful when I can go down there and just kind of dabble a jig down in front of them and get them to bite. But man, you put a live minnow down there, it's quick fishing. So now I know why all those professional crappie guides use live bait all the time. You make for a short trip. All right. Let's see. Next question. Who's that? I see just the top of their head. Oh, Tyler, what's up, man? I just saw the nose to your eyes and the top of your head. I'm like, what in the world? Oh man. Anybody else got any questions? Or you want me to come up with something?
Gene, just a quick question. How do you feel about handmade baits?
How do I feel about handmade baits? I'm pretty picky about them because I've been given a few that I really do not like. And people are like, this is the greatest thing, and it's, there's one, and I hate to say this, but there's this one that this guy gave me about a year ago that is a vibrating bait, and it has a solar panel on the top, and it's a topwater bait.
Oh my God!
And it's great. They make one that's a cricket. Now, if you guys ever find there's one online it's about the size of a cricket. It's perfect for bluegill. But the only problem with having a topwater bait that has a solar panel and works off of solar power is topwater works the best in low light conditions with cloudy weather. So when you're using this bait, you can't use it in cloudy weather. And so, because it doesn't vibrate, it just is another bait. And so, but I mean, it's a great idea. It's a good concept. But I think there needs to be some tweaks to it before you get those kind of deals. And then, hold on, somebody just came on that's got an echo. I'll mute him for a second. But anyway, so the
Gene, you got muted.
handle that. All right. The inconsistencies, I don't like. I like inconsistencies in crankbaits, is what I was saying, is because that's what makes a crankbait hunt. If the guy knows how to make it, I've got another one where I get a crankbait and it spins, and I'm like, no, that's not going to work, And so, I don't normally talk about baits that are bad that people send me, because I just tell them, I said, if it's really bad, you just won't hear anything from me. So it's just kind of the way I am. But I'm all for it. I mean, especially like what you do, hand pouring and stuff like that. Man, what a great hobby, and it can make you a little bit of money. And I always tell people that, like, when I made my own jigs, when people make their own jigs, don't do it for the money, because it's really hard to make money doing it, because there's 10,000 people doing the same thing. But
yeah.
Make it for the fun of it, and if you get really good at it and get really lucky, then you'll start making money at it. So I never made money making jigs. I mean, I never saved any money making jigs either. And I didn't even do my own pouring. I didn't even pour my own lead. So Tom, how's the fishing been down in Florida, Tom?
It has been. I think it could be a lot better. Give you an idea. The lake, one of the lakes that I fish, and I was there last week, the water temperature was 90.6 degrees. And you're good to about 8:30, and then after that, once the sun gets up maybe 25, 30 degrees, you're just done. You're just absolutely done. It's just too hot. I don't think that. I think the fish are where they're always at,
Yeah.
but I just think they are just. Unless you hit them on the head with it, they don't want any part of it
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
It's just too hot. I mean, 91-degree water. It's amazing, and that's just.
And and the bad thing down there is that you don't have a lot of deep water, so you can't go looking for the deep
No.
70-degree water. So I don't
We
know
don't
what you
have
would
that. No, a thermocline might be 89.6 versus 90.9.
Because
It's been very, very slow.
I was the boater for that guy I did the Ryan, the guy I did the bank fishing video with. When he was fishing Junior Bassmasters, I was a boater for him, and no kidding, the water temperature was 99.5 degrees.
Where was this at?
This was on Lake Jackson. We had 2 weeks solid of over 103-degree temperature, and the surface temperature was just miserable. So we went and found this is really a good lesson too. We went and looked for a place that that the river channel ran all the way up against the bank and ran along a point. Okay, so it came off the bank and along a point, and so the point's up on the backside of it, and it caused that cooler water that was deep to become turbulent and to kind of push up towards the surface, but not all the way. We were still fishing in 15 feet of water. But you pulled up on that point, and every fish in the lake was on that point.
Was there? Yeah.
We had hybrid on that point. We had crappie. We had white. What else did we have? Catfish, gar. Everything was up on that point. But he still is hot because it had been such horrible weather. That boy at 16 years old fished a jig slower than anybody I've ever seen fish before, and he doubled second place in that tournament. And we were only allowed to fish for like 5 hours because of the heat. It was supposed to be an 8-hour tournament, and we only allowed 5 hours. But I mean, and there were big spotted bass on the. I was throwing a drop shot trying to catch some of those white bass.
Yeah.
And I hooked into a spot, and I looked at him. I said, "Ryan, I am so sorry." And I brought up about a 4.5 pound spot. So, but
when it gets that hot, what I do, and I don't know if it makes any difference or not, but I'm down to use like a 4-inch finesse worm right now. I'm just trying to tease them with a smaller bait. I don't know if that'll make a difference or not.
Yeah, you never know. A lot of times, you just in that hot water, they're looking for the most oxygen they can find. So you just got to go punch grass and punch grass and punch grass, and like you said, you got to hit them in the nose to get them to open their mouth.
But that'll turn around. I mean, in another couple of weeks, this is just the dog days of southern or central and South Florida. But once we get through these next 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, the bite will be back on.
Yep, it sure will.
Well, I'm going to go. It was great talking to you, and I hope you guys all do well.
I appreciate it. Hey, I'm going to probably do this week after next, and then come September, I've got. I want you to come on because you're always a lot of fun to have on these things. But come September, I'm not going to have any because I'm actually doing a big group thing, teaching a bunch of dads how to teach their kids how to fish. So
that's nice.
My Thursday night deal all through September. So
I'll keep an eye on you. I'll just keep an eye on you on Facebook.
Okay, sounds good. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Hold on, guys. I forgot to set my timer. I'm a slacker. Anyway, let's see. We got William Walker. Walker's got his muted. Okay, good. We got it full again. Cool. All right. Who else wants to talk? Don't be shy. Come on now.
I'm always willing to talk about fishing. Let's see here. I've always wanted to ask you this question because I've never seen you fishing this a lot. How do you feel about shaky head fishing, with big, huge, like 10-inch and 12?
Oh gosh, I've actually done it. And I used to put an old monster on a shaky head, depending on what I was doing. And it's not a finesse technique. It's just a, it just depends on where you're at, and what type of fish you're trying to catch. What I was doing is I was fishing a ledge, and I didn't have a jig small enough to get a slow fall, and I wanted a really slow fall off of this ledge. So I'd throw that shaky head up there with that old monster. It's a ribbon tail worm, and so it's got a little bit of a kick to it to slow it down, and I'd throw it up on that ledge and drag it, and the bass were suspended about halfway down, and I wouldn't even call it a ledge. It's more of a straight down bluff, and drag it until it started to fall, and it would fall slow enough to where they'd see it coming, and they'd just open up their mouth and grab it, and I'd set the hook. And so, yeah, when I want to slow down the fall of a jig, that's about the only time I've ever used it. I've used big worms on a drop shot. You know, the only problem with having a ribbon tail on a drop shot, a classic drop shot, is that it ties itself around the main line a lot on your cast.
That happen.
Yeah, so that's why I like straight tail with drop shot and stuff like that doesn't have a real thin ribbon tail. So, but yeah, that's a good question. That's a you know, like I got a question the other day on YouTube. Let me see if I can phrase this right. It was about what rig was the best for like a crawfish or like a big worm or something, some type of plastic. And the biggest thing I want to tell everybody is, if it's a soft plastic, it will go on any rig. You know, it doesn't matter what you're fishing. Use your imagination, throw it on whatever, but a soft plastic will go on any rig. And there's not a best of anything. If there was a best bait out there or a best rig out there, we'd all be fishing it. We'd all be catching fish, and we'd all be fishing the same exact thing. And the bait companies wouldn't make any money. You know, so they'd all be making Alabama rigs. But
that's what makes fishing fun, isn't it?
Yeah, dude. I mean, trying to figure them out, because every fish is in. You know, they all have their own little moods and their own little temperaments, and you know, some of them. There are fish out there, I believe, that will never bite a single lure, period. And they're the biggest ones in the lake, and that's just my own personal belief. But I've heard other people say the same thing: is there are big fish out there, and there are a lot of them who had never been caught. So it's just one of those things. All of them have their own little deal. But let's see. Tyler, man, how you doing? Where's Tyler at? Oh, okay, that's Tyler. I was thinking of Nick. Nick, you were on here last week, weren't you?
No.
Oh, okay. There was somebody else named Nick last week. So, let's see. Anybody got any questions? Like I said, it's open mic night, so.
Well, Gene.
Yeah.
I was at a small pond, and I was just fishing this little frog.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And yeah, I just got it. I was just strolling around like Walmart and stuff. I just looked, and they had it for like $2.
Right.
So I was like, might as well try it in a small pond, see what I can get.
Yep.
And I think I landed like a couple of 2-pounders, like 6 inches off the bank. Like no grass, no nothing.
Yep.
I poked a little hole in the bottom and just sat there and just like twitched it, and they just ate it. And I was like, dang.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, this time of year, a lot of times, at least my experience this past week, was that all the bigger bass were in about 6 inches to a foot of water chasing bluegill and whatever else was on the bank, you know. And so, but it's cool to go out and find a little cheap lure like that and kind of mess around with it and catch fish. I love to do that. Definitely. I remember the $1 buzzbait that I bought once, and just I wore them out until the thing broke apart. You know, a little Walmart buzzbait.
Yeah, I caught so many fish that my dad, like, the next weekend ran out and just bought, like, 4 of each different color, just because I had one and it tore it up in, like, a couple of fish, though, but they just kept smashing it. And I was like, dang.
Yeah, cool. Cool.
Oh, yeah, Gene, by the way, I finished my fluke collection.
Uh-oh. Do you still have any money?
No, I really don't.
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Well, since you're collecting flukes, let me tell you a source to go get the rare special run colors. Is call Aberdeen Bait and Tackle in Aberdeen, North Carolina, and have them mail you all the special run colors that they did years ago. But it's a tackle store I go to when I'm up there, and it's got the owner's basically a hoarder, and he buys all of the Zoom plastics in bulk. And when they come out with they have a certain number of special run colors they do every year. He buys every bait that they make in that color in bulk, and then he stores over 2/3 of it in the back. And you can go back 20 years, and he's got those colors. It's
Wow.
amazing. It is amazing what he's got. I bet I don't know how many millions of dollars in inventory he has in storage, but you can buy the old hose cedar crankbaits from him and stuff like that. So
We're
Cool.
in North Carolina.
yeah,
That.
it's Aberdeen, North Carolina.
I live in Asheville, New York.
Oh, okay. Yep. But yeah, that's a great little tackle store. I keep telling him just to start selling the stuff on eBay and retire, but he doesn't want to do it.
I'll definitely have to go and stop up there because my family reunion's up there this upcoming year, so I'll definitely stop up there. But I got like most of the main production ones that are still
Yeah.
being sold and everything, and I got a few special colors, and I even got some colors that were specially made by Zoom for my local bait shop. It's called Mark's Outdoor Sports,
Mm-hmm.
and they're here like in Alabama, and they get custom colors I get made for their bait shop. I'm not really sure how that works, but I got some of those colors, and I guess I'm gonna just start working on fishing them all. See if that ever happens, fishing all of them.
Yep. Yep. Well, cool.
Hey, Gene,
Cool. Yep.
I got a question. Small, medium-sized pond.
Hold on, Walker. Is this you talking?
Yeah.
Yeah. And speak a little closer to your microphone. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Just mostly small, medium-sized ponds.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I haven't been able to catch anything from artificial bait.
Right.
It's the only thing the only fish I've caught recently have been on live minnow, live smallmouth. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think that's just something to do with the season, or is it just I mean, I just listen, I just spent $50 and refreshed my tax. Kind of a bummer. Spent all that money
Well,
artificial.
okay. You're breaking up really bad, but from what I got of it, you're having trouble catching anything on artificials.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be, and I'm gonna send you to one of my videos. Is my Mojo video. So I've got a video called "How to Fish a Mojo Rig," and it's basically a finesse technique. And you can go to any pond or lake in the country and work the banks, and you will eventually catch a fish on it because it's just one of those things that it's just a little bitty worm on light line, and you just go out there and work the banks, and you'll catch a fish. I mean, and that'll get you started learning how to fish soft plastics, and that's what I would suggest anyway. Is if you're having trouble catching anything on artificials, don't throw crankbaits, maybe a spinner bait, but start off just learning what a Texas rig is, what a Mojo rig is, and go fish them, and fish only them, and leave your live bait at home. You know, and then you'll catch fish. You know, I've seen it too many times. People just are frustrated with the fact that what the thing is you've got confidence in your live bait, and as soon as you get confidence in your soft plastics, you'll find yourself catching more and more and more and more fish with them. So it's all in your head. So I hope that helped.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yep.
I saw your buzzbait video, and have you ever fished a horny toad on the back of a buzzbait instead of like that?
Yep, I have.
Yeah, that's been working really good.
Shh. That's one of those things I promised a few of my friends I wouldn't say anything about. So. But yeah, do a bubblegum horny toad and see what happens.
Okay, I was doing that.
So, but anyway, let me see. Anybody that's been on here since the beginning, we're at that half-hour point. So I'm not going to boot you off, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to bump yourself off for a while. Let somebody else jump on since we got a full load right now. So
I'll bump out. I've been here. I enjoyed my time here, and I'll see you guys
Thanks,
week
man.
after next. I got some dates to get forward.
All right, cool. Go at it.
All right. Thanks, Gene.
No problem, man. Cool.
I think I got an extra here.
Yeah, Terry, go ahead.
I'm fishing smallmouth in my lakes because there is just no largemouth.
Right.
So for pre-spawn ideas, I was still going with the jerkbait, but it wasn't working. So I don't know if I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, or if I was working them bad. But do you have any idea of something else I should use? Because the drop shot was the first rig that catch them.
Yeah. Were you seeing them on your fish finder?
Mm, no, not too much.
Yeah, it's
No.
usually it's not it's not what you're using, it's where you're using it. You know, so in other words, what I always tell people is you got to find the fish before you can catch the fish. And with a drop shot, since you already have confidence in it, once you find the fish, you can usually, if it's especially smallmouth, because they school up real good,
Mhm.
and you'll be able to drop down on them, at least catch one out of that school. But you may just have not been on an active school. And so, you know, it's just a matter of moving around and finding a school that's feeding, or finding a school period. You know. So, you know, that drop shot is deadly when you're on them. Right? But what do they say? What 10% of the lake holds 90% of the bass, or something like that? So,
Okay.
yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah, no problem, Terry. Oh, good. We got a bunch of new people on. I also got somebody with an echo I'm going to try to find. All right, anybody got any questions? No, we're just going to...
Dean,
Yeah.
can you talk about some night fishing tips?
Oh, yeah. Let me see. I got to find out who's got an echo, though, because that's really bugging me. Let me see. It's probably me. I'm muting everybody, so give me a second. Oh. I think it was Brian. Sorry, Brian. I'm going to turn you on here in just a second. But all right. Night fishing tips. I actually used to fish night fishing tournaments. And so what I really figured out is that once the sun goes down, most of the time there's about a half hour to 45-minute lull where the bass just don't bite very good. You can be really on them really good, and then after the sun goes down, you know, I don't know if it's them trying to get their eyes adjusted or what. I don't know what it is, but then after about 45 minutes to an hour, you start getting bites again. But I like to. The biggest thing is I make sure that I'm on them first. You know, I'm looking at my fish finder, or I'm not trying to find fish after dark, because for me that gets a little dangerous, because I like to run and gun when I'm looking for fish. So I've got a point that has fish on them, and the fish are starting to move shallow because they're deep when the sun's out or when it's hot. A lot of times they're either out deep or they're in cover. But once that light goes away, they scatter. So I'm going to be throwing things on the bank like a buzz bait, or hold on just a second. Okay, I'm going to throw like a buzz bait or a spinner bait, something that's got some vibration to it. If I'm dragging a jig, it's going to have rattles on it. If I'm dragging a Texas rig worm, I'm going to have a bead underneath, in between the weight and the hook, so it has a little bit of noise to it. I don't like a lot of noise, but a buzz, except when I'm fishing, you know, burning the bank with a buzz bait. I don't like a lot of noise when I'm dragging something. I just want something that clicks, like a crawfish chewing on something, stuff like that. You would be amazed at how many good fish you catch on a Carolina rig in the middle of the night. And just I'll darken up my worms. You go to a June bug or a black worm and stuff like that, especially when there's a lot of a full moon or a decent moon up high. Trying to think of anything else. The biggest thing is confidence, though, for me. You know, if I don't feel like I'm on the fish, I'm not biting, and I'm not gonna catch anything. And just even if I'm on the fish, what are the other things I look for? Boat docks with lights. Anybody got any any lakes that have boat docks all over them that people like to shine lights down in them in the water?
No.
Well, a lot of times when you're fishing these boat docks, there'll be lights in the water, and they'll actually have the lights on, and then under the lights are some brush piles to attract the fish. And the smart ones, or the ones that don't like us fishing their docks, will actually turn their lights off when they're not fishing. But a lot of guys, they're on timers and they just turn on. So we'll go fish lighted boat docks a lot of times at night. But the biggest thing is just use something with a little bit of noise. But if you're or use something that's a topwater surface bait like a buzz bait, or what's the other one, the Arbogast jitterbug. A lot of people fish those black jitterbugs at night, bringing them on the surface, because when you're in under the surface looking up at night, you actually can see pretty good silhouettes. So, boy, somebody's got some background noise. But you can see silhouettes up at the surface, and so that's kind of what the bass sees. So anything over top of their head that shows a pretty good silhouette, you don't want a clear bait. You don't want. I don't like white baits unless there's a full moon. I'll usually go with a darker black or something else. My black buzz bait, double bladed, that hits, clacks the blades together and stuff like that. Usually pretty good. So.
Okay, are you burning that buzzbait back, or are you just slow rolling?
Same way I do it in the day, just slow rolling it, just enough to where I start hearing the pop of the blade coming out of the water. I don't hardly ever burn a buzzbait. I can't remember when I caught a fish when I was doing it. So
you're just throwing right up to the bank, in amongst the brush and everything.
Yep, try not to get hung in the trees you don't see overhanging the bank. Your depth perception goes to crap when it gets nighttime. So
I have that problem with heavy jigs.
You end up digging them out of trees. Yeah, I have that issue too. But my favorite thing to do on certain lakes, the lakes that I used to night fish on, is or fish tournaments at night, is run those that boat dock lights. And I've heard there's a lot of the new ones that people are actually, they're submerged lights. You can't see them until you get all the way up to the boat dock. And they're lights that are all the way down on the bottom shining up, and those are awesome because they attract a ton of fish. So,
all right, well, I appreciate it, G.
Yeah, man, no problem.
All right, thanks.
Have you ever fished frogs at night?
Not frogs. I haven't. Not to say that I wouldn't, but I haven't. So.
You should give that a try. It's a ball.
Oh, I bet. I used to fish for big brown trout with a mouse. A mouse lure in a new moon, so there was no moon, no light or anything else. You'd throw out and you'd strip it and just listen, and all of a sudden it sounded like somebody threw a big tire into the water, and you'd just set the hook.
We do that in the lake here. It's covered in lily pads. You throw it out and just listen for the flush, and then set the hook.
Yeah, the flush. That's what it is. Sounds like a toilet flushing. But yeah, that's a blast. Night fishing's a ball. The biggest thing about night fishing though is safety when you're in a boat. Before it gets dark, clean your boat up, get all your rods out of the way, get only the rods out that you're going to use, put your life jacket on, because a lot of things can go bad at night, and make sure your lights are on your boat and everything else are working before you go out. I was swapping stories with a guy the other day, and he said I was going 60 down through the lake, and this is my lake that I fish every day, and he was a place called we call the Pass, and he was coming through the pass, and he just had this feeling, and he picked up his spotlight and shined it, and there was a pontoon boat with no lights on sitting in the middle of the pass, and just sitting there. And the pass is only as big as, you can run 3 or 4 boats through it pretty comfortably. But I mean, he was heading straight for the stinking pontoon boat, and they were just sitting in the middle of there, just drifting with no lights on, And so, biggest thing is safety, because and have your headlamp on and lights on or something, So huge. A lot of people get killed at night on boats.
Gene.
Yeah, man.
What would be a good bait to use in like a river that's only like about 3 feet deep?
Are there fish in it?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Just anything that runs about a couple inches off the bottom. I'm thinking the first thing that comes to mind is does it have a lot of current?
No, it's like a real slow.
Okay, largemouth like to get out of the current. They don't want to hang out anywhere near it. They'll hang on the edge of it when they're feeding active. But like when I'm fishing, like I've got a river right behind the house, and when I'm fishing it, I'm trying to get into those places that create eddies that will push the food to the fish, or places that are just out of the way, backwater and stuff like that are almost like a lake. And then you just want to match the depth. You know, my favorite thing to fish out here is a buzzbait, because I usually fish out here in the summertime because the water's a little cooler coming out of the bottom of the dam on the lake. And then the other one is a trickworm, a floating trickworm. You know, throw it out there, and you actually work it like a jerk bait or like a spook and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's just match your depth and work the bank until you catch a fish, or work the area until you catch a fish, and then slow down and try to work each little area because there will be more than one fish in that one spot. So,
Okay.
definitely. I'm looking for a buddy of mine to come on named Paul, but I don't see him. But anyway. Oh, Nick, you've been on here for a while. You got any questions? You just wanted to hang out, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's all right, brother. I'm fine with that. Where are you from?
Asheville.
Where?
Asheville. It's like
Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, so really close to Tennessee.
Yeah, you fish up those highland reservoirs.
Yeah, like Lake James. And
Yep. I got to go up and fish Lake Norman sometime soon.
About maybe 2 hours away.
Yep. Yeah, somebody wants me to guide them up there, and I've never fished it, so.
Yeah, I've never either, but.
Yeah. I understand it's gonna be a tough lake. It's a spotted bass lake. I love spotted bass, but Lake Norman's they say it's a different animal. So yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Cool. There is something I want to talk about. Anybody ever fished I know you have, but anybody like fishing a popper?
Me. Oh, yeah.
Little popper. You know, if you haven't seen my buzzbait video, go watch it. But what I found out the next day was the guys I'd helped two guys come in first and second in tournaments Saturday and Sunday, and so I went out Monday and basically did the same thing they were doing, because we had figured out the pattern 3 days before, and but I've always wanted to do a popper video, but never gotten a good popper bite, and it was one of those duh moments, you know, where you just like, I'm catching them every once in a while on a buzzbait, but I was missing a lot of them. I was getting a lot of short strikes, or a lot of fish coming up and looking at it and turn away, and they were chasing bait fish about this long, you know, little teeny tiny little 1.5 inch long bait fish. And if you ever have that problem, and they're up shallow and they're pushing bait fish into the bank and stuff like that, and you can't match the size of the bait fish, pull out a popper and start chunking it, because one of the guys that was fishing there caught like 60 fish on a popper, you know, and I could have done a lot better, but the buzzbait video turned out great. I still caught good fish on it. Good thing about a video is you only have to catch 2 or 3 fish to make it look good. So, but just those little poppers are really nice, you know, and I hope that bite's still on next week when I get out there, because I'd love to make a popper video. I have about 10 of them in my box, and I never use them, so it'd be nice to be able to get out there and do it. So
yeah, I don't really think about ever using those, really.
Yeah, and I never think about it either. In the spring or in the summer like this, you know, all the bait fish are small. Your bluegill fry are really, really tiny. If you have shad in your lake, they're really small. It's just the babies from the spring, from the spawn.
Yeah.
You know, be it no matter what it is, crappie or bass or whatever, they're all really small. So that's what everything's keying on, is just that small bait. And so in the summertime, if you can downsize your poppers or make your baits look smaller, you can usually catch a lot more active fish. Or, you know, but when I go deep, for some reason I'm always throwing a big worm, just because I tend to get bit more in the big worm deep. But that shallow bite, I like to throw small stuff. So
they make a tiny hula hop popper. It's 3/4 of an inch long.
Ooh, wow.
It's
yeah.
Walmart Bait Bonanza, $1.50.
I think I have a couple of those.
And they're like this big. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I bought some, and I bet you they're on the floorboard in my car underneath the seat. I bet you money that's where they're at, because I was in North Carolina guiding up at Kingfisher, and I always drive my car up there, and I've been looking for those things. And I bet you money I got to go dig in my car underneath the seat.
Replace the hooks though.
Oh yeah, I bet.
They're garbage.
All right, you're gonna have me dig into my car tomorrow morning. Oh man. I remember those are really tiny, teeny tiny, and skinny too. So,
Yep.
Do you have to throw them on spinning gear?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I figured. Cool. Too cool. All right, guys. If you don't talk, this is gonna be the last Q&A I have.
Anybody do a Rios?
Actually, I'm going to start because I'm really excited about their new deep diving crankbait that's coming out. I saw it at iCast when I was doing videos for Bass Resource. All the Bass Resource videos that came out at iCast, I'm the one behind the camera. And that deep diving crankbait, they say it dives 26 feet deep on 12-pound test line. And so I want to take it out because and they say it has very little drag. You know, a deep diving crankbait, those of us who've done it, it can really wear you out during the day because it's hard to crank. But they say this one is really, the way it's designed and everything, it's not hard to crank. So
Comes through the water well.
yeah, and I just bought 2 of the little spy baiting baits. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try to teach myself how to do that. I got the Greenfish Tackle Company that's here in town. One of the co-owners, Shin Fukai, stays at his house when he stays here in town. So cross your fingers. I'm gonna try to get him on my boat so he can so he can make a video with me.
Gene.
Yep.
Sometimes when I do summer fishing and all like the baby stuff, what I use are like these little swim baits stuff.
Yep. Yeah,
that are like an inch and stuff. And I actually found at Walmart these like half-inchers.
Yeah, the little Berkeley swim baits. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like half an inch, and it's like baby bass. And I think I caught like almost a 4-pound on it, just slowly dragging it across the bottom. Real shallow.
Yep. Yeah, that's like I said, all you gotta do is just match that size, and a lot of times you'll catch fish on it. And I'm not a proponent of matching the hatch. I don't believe you have to do it for everything with bass. But when you see them actively feeding on bait fish, and you see floating bait fish in the water that are really small, it's a good idea to at least match the size. So, but I'm trying to read the questions over here on the other side, up on the live little, whatever they call it, the chat room over here on my YouTube channel. What does it say? Oh, here's a good one. It's Danny McTeague said, to me, a rod is a rod. Maybe a more specific rod type will catch you a couple more fish, but in the mid-1900s they didn't have all these specific rods. So as long as it is heavy enough or light enough, my thought is you're probably right. I mean, you'll catch fish on a broom handle. But a lot of times, if you want to optimize and take advantage of each bite, you can, it's good to have a rod that somewhat matches what you're fishing. Because if I'm fishing a drop shot or a small hooked bait or something else with a heavy action rod, a lot of things can go wrong. First of all, you can't cast it because the rod has no flex, doesn't have enough flex to load up those light baits. And second of all, when you set the hook, you're going to straighten the hook out on that fish because that rod has no give to it. So, but goodness, somebody's making a whole lot of noise. But the biggest, so you're right. You don't need a lot of rods, but it's nice to have 3 or 4 set rods. 3 or 4 rods that can cover the whole spectrum of lures. A spinning rod, a light action or a medium action spinning rod, a medium action bait caster, a medium heavy action bait caster, and a heavy action bait caster. You have those 4, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a whole bunch of background noise. But anyway, you have those 4, and that will cover a lot of stuff, and you'll have a lot more chance at catching fish. When you get into the crankbaits and stuff like that, that's when you get into more of the specific. You need something that really has a lot of flex that you prevent you from losing fish, because a lot of time when you're fighting fish on a crankbait, I'm trying to figure out who's making all that noise. When you're fighting a fish on a crankbait, you need the give of that rod to help you fight the fish, because that fish can be coming straight at you. That rod can straighten out really quick if you have a stiff rod, and that fish will throw that bait, or it'll throw it right back in your face even when it's close to the boat. So you need that bend in the rod to help you fight the fish, but you don't need that bend in the rod when you're fighting them with a jig, because you can't set the hook on the jig, and then you're using heavy line, and you get that fish to the boat as fast as you can, and get him in the boat. You always run that risk, when you have a stiff rod, of losing the fish on a fight, because you're going to lose that flex really fast. But it's a give and take thing. So that's really a good statement, because back then they had they had one rod or one type of rod, but they were also probably losing a lot of fish. But they didn't have all the different techniques and different lures we had either. They had the jelly worm, the man's jelly worm, and plugs and stuff like that, but they didn't have a whole lot of choices and a whole lot of decisions to make on what lures and what hooks and things like that. So as we got more baits and more lures, we got more rods to be able to be more specific towards those lures. So, off my soapbox.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I heard you mention copolymer line. What exactly is that?
Copolymer is fluorocarbon coated monofilament.
Okay.
And so what you get is a line that's kind of halfway between the two. It doesn't float, but it doesn't sink. It doesn't sink fast. If you lay it out in the water long enough, it's going to sink down. But I use it for my top water. I use it for everything. So it doesn't float. It has less stretch than monofilament, but more stretch than fluorocarbon. And it is more abrasive resistant than monofilament. And I think it's a little more abrasive resistant than some fluorocarbons too. You don't get that little curly Q when you on fluorocarbon like you do on fluorocarbon. And the reason I fish is because it's always worked for me. I've hung a 5-pounder over a log for 2.5 minutes while I worked my boat around the log jam to get to it, and still got it off, and the line hadn't even been touched. And it was just hanging from a stump. So,
because I wanted to try it, I've heard it's kind of like you say in between, but I wasn't exactly sure.
And I can afford it, and so
goodness,
somebody's got some really bad background noise, but and so I really for like a for the stuff I buy, the Iserline XXX, I like it because they don't have an advertising budget, so they are able to keep their prices low because they're not paying for advertising. It's only by word of mouth. So for a 1/4 pound spool that'll last me 2 years, well, except for 15-pound test, I buy the big 1 pound spool for 15-pound test, but a 1/4 pound spool is like $13, $14, $15.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of line, and so it'll fill up your reel 6, 7, 8 times depending on how much you put on it. But that's the reason I do it, because I'm cheap and it works great. So but
probably better than a lot of the expensive fluoro.
Yeah, and I fish it in clear water too, and I don't really have a lot of problem with it. Now I don't fish when I'm finesse fishing. When the bite is really tough, I go straight to fluorocarbon. I'm not even going to hesitate going to fluorocarbon. But most of the time, I'm gonna throw it because it's cheap and it lasts a long time. So.
All right.
Hey, Gene, you said you said that you used to do night tournaments. Now, I'm assuming it was still a little bit daylight whenever you started out. This time of the year, did you start out deep and work your way shallow, or just go to shallow?
Nope, we started out deep, and the tournaments were usually over till 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we usually didn't. We usually went shallow for the last little bit. But if I was on a point that was just full of fish, I'd stay there and milk it for all it was worth until I got to the point where I felt like they weren't biting anymore and left. So,
So points and ledges is a good start off spot.
Yeah. Plus, I'm a points and ledge fisherman, so it's
okay.
That's
I've noticed from your videos.
Yeah, I've become that way, I guess. And I got schooled, like I said, with this buzzbait thing. I got schooled, and I need to start fishing, the buzzbaits a little bit better, or a little bit, or fishing the bank a little bit better, and stop concentrating solely on the points and the ledges. So,
is there a chance you could get a video with a double bladed buzzbait?
I got to find a new one first, because the company that makes my double bladed buzzbaits, they've kind of suspended operation. They haven't gone out of business, but they suspended operation, and I don't have any more buzzbaits, and I can't find one that I like. So as soon as I find one that I have confidence in, I'll make one. I promise. It's just a matter of finding one. But
all right. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
Ask Seabird Outdoors to make a buzzbait.
Yeah, I could ask. Yeah, heck yeah. I didn't even think about asking Mike.
Yeah, Mike's awesome.
Yeah, I could see if he could play around with one for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got so hung on. It's called Old Nelly Lure Company, and Old Nelly has been around for years and years and years. It's a staple. It used to be a staple lure company here in Georgia back in I want to say the 80s and 90s, and they basically, I knew the guys that were making the baits, and I still paid full price for them, but they made them, and then I could bend them and make them to where the blades would clack together, and they made them to where I could play around with them a little bit better. So I just got to find one that I can bend up and actually make work as good as those. So anyway, is what it is.
Gene?
Yeah, man.
What are some of the lakes that you fish in North Carolina? Because I just want to get some new ideas.
To be honest with you, I have only fished that one private lake in North Carolina. But like I tell everybody, all my clients that say, my guide service that I do, and I don't do it very often because I enjoy it, but if I do it all the time, if I did that full time, I wouldn't be doing videos. So the one at Kingfisher called Richmond Mill is the only one I have, but my goal is this summer and next summer to spend some time up at Lake Norman and a bunch of the other ones up in North Carolina and just learn them, because this one guy is going to pay me to go up and guide him, and I'm going to spend a day looking for the fish so we can go out and go fishing.
Yeah, because I live right in the middle of North Carolina in Durham, and
but like I always say with any lake, a bass is a bass wherever he lives. You just got to understand how he reacts to his climate changes, and so and the places he likes to hang out and things like that. That's why I'm able to go to these lakes and find fish really fast. I'm not going to find a tournament winning bag very quick. It usually takes 3 or 4 or 5 days of hard fishing for me to find a good tournament winning bag, but I can go out and find fish pretty quick because I have certain things I do no matter what lake I go to. Certain places I look, and then I make certain decisions depending on water clarity and cover and types of structure and things like that allow me to more effectively fish what I find. So like if I go to Lake Norman, I'm looking for points. I'm looking for this time of year places where creek channels come together and stuff like that. Just those typical southern patterns. And then what it gives me, what I'm looking at, I try to make decisions on that, and then I go and I'll just start looking for fish and try to find the same things around the lake. It's a lot easier than what a lot of people say it is or think it is, and that's the thing. I was talking with J.J. Pollock today about this. Is a lot of people think that bass fishing is this one trivial thing, when it's not. It's pretty simple. You got to get it out of your head that they're smarter than you, because they're not. They react to weather the same. They react to weather, and it's just a matter. And they react to anything that changes in their climate, and it's just a matter of using that process of deduction and putting that puzzle together and getting better and better at it. That's when time on the water helps. You use all those things and put them all together and put the puzzle pieces together, and all of a sudden you're catching fish all the time, or you're catching fish every day you go out. If you guys saw my my mystery tackle box, my MTB Slam, I fished for 11 hours and I caught 4 fish. You know, and I kicked my tail the whole day, but that lake always kicks my tail in the summertime, you know, and I knew it was going to be tough, but I wished I'd have had another 3 hours of fish, because I'd have gone to every grass patch on that lake as fast as I could and tried, and once, because that last fish told me exactly what the pattern was, and those fish were in those matted grass patches, and you would go by 15 or 20 that weren't matted, and all of a sudden there'd be a matted one, and that's the one that would have all the fish in it. And so had I had 2 more hours, man, I would have loaded up the boat, but I didn't. I had to go home and go to work. So, but that's lake fishing though, and like I said, just just figure out how you fish and go fish any lake that way, and eventually you'll put all the puzzle pieces together. So anyway, I could go on forever about that. And we got a bunch of people on, and nobody talking but me.
Gene.
Yeah.
I have a question just in general about tournament fishing, because I'm fishing my first tournament this weekend. Like, I've been fishing Lanier for a while, but I've never actually tournament fished it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do my first one this weekend, and I was just wondering, like, in general, like, tournament tips. Because you always hear people talking about fishing clean and should have done this, should have done that. Like.
Don't let what the pros say bother you. Go fish the way you fish. You know. What do you plan on? Do you already have a game plan in your head?
Yeah.
Okay. The biggest thing is, hold on, I got somebody that's got an echo. Okay, Chris fixed it for me. The biggest thing I found out about tournament fishing. Now if my friends are watching this, they know I don't fish very many tournaments anymore. I did several years ago when I had the time, but because my full-time job is on the weekend, I can't fish weekend tournaments. But the biggest thing you hear guys saying, "Well, I made the wrong decision," or "I stayed too long," all that other stuff. And don't worry yourself about that. Okay. Come up with a game plan, fish that game plan until you lose confidence in that game plan, and then go find more fish or change up just a little bit. So I'm assuming on Lanier right now you're going to be fishing brush piles in 18 to 20 feet or 18 to 30 feet of water.
Yeah, and like 40 feet sometimes.
Yeah, and 40 feet. They might even be 40 feet. I was fishing there 2 weeks ago, so.
And in the mornings, kind of shallow.
Yeah, in the morning, shallows, running a buzzbait or popper. If you can find bluegill spawning, yep. If you can find bluegill spawning, throw something, like a trick worm. We were smacking them on a wacky rig trick worm around bluegill beds, because you pull into a pocket and you'd smell that bluegill spawning smell that you spawning. And that's when we knew we had to just hammer down and start fishing, because every time we pull into a pocket and smell that, there'd be 2 or 3 wolf packs of spotted bass and largemouth bass working the banks. And so we'd throw either a topwater or a wacky rig trick worm and just fill the boat in that pocket. And you go 6 or 7 other pockets, and there were no fish. And then you go to another one, you go find another pocket, and you'd smell that smell, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I've seen the exact same thing, yeah.
So, that's
the thing is, it's a pretty big club. It's called the Greater Atlanta Bass Club, and it's I think it's like 40 boats, 35 boats usually.
Oh, wow.
And it's not the easiest tournament to win. It usually, if it's like a 3-fish limit, it usually takes like 11, 12 pounds, somewhere around there. But the thing is, I don't exactly have all the time to pre-fish like other people do, because I'm in school and everything, so I haven't fished the lake in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to develop a game plan when you haven't really pre-fished at all.
Yeah. Well, you can always just use it as a learning. Keep learning, and it'll get better and better. But you stick to your game plan until you're like, man, this just isn't going to work, and then you just go do something different. But it's that's how I used to do it, and that's how I would do it now. It's just. Confidence is so big in my book that once you lose it, you're not going to catch the fish, even if they want to bite what's on the end of your line. So,
right. Yeah. And on the same subject of tournament fishing, how do you manage your live well? Because I've been doing pretty well just using ice and additives. But is there any other stuff that you do? Except for hydrogen peroxide and all this crazy.
Yeah. Okay. This is the number. And I actually have gotten into discussion, a lot of deep discussion with a chemist and a biologist who are really good at this and understand the whole idea of it. But the Catch and Release and the Please Release Me by Sure Life Labs.
Yeah.
That is the only live well additive I will ever use.
Yeah, I regret I bought Rejuvenate, and after reading on like Bass Resource and stuff, everyone's just hating on it and saying it's terrible.
I'll tell you right now, and I'm not sponsored by either of them.
Yeah, I know.
I don't make any money off of them, but I will tell you the difference between the two. Well, the key difference between the two, the Rejuvenate or the Please Release Me and the Catch and Release was designed and invented by a chemist who has 30-something patents on chemicals that help keep fish alive, whether they're being transported from source to fish store or whatever. He invented all this stuff. The Rejuvenate was invented by 2 ex-chicken farmers. What's the difference between the two? You know, and so
it makes my fish freak out too.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's got a garlic in it, a garlic additive, garlic powder, and what it does is it causes them to stress out, and it makes them really, really active. So they look like, oh, they're alive, yay, my fish are doing.
But then in reality, when you release them, they just
24 hours later, they're more likely going to be dead. You know, because they're so stressed out. I worked a bait or a release tank once, and you could tell the difference between the people who used either Catch and Release or no additive at all, and then those who used Rejuvenate. You'd flip open their gill plates, and the ones that used Rejuvenate, their gills would be pink because
irritated.
They didn't have any oxygen, or they didn't have any. They were so stressed out they weren't pumping any blood through their gills because they were pumping all their blood into their muscles to keep themselves, because they were so stressed out, and that's why they die. So horrible stuff, and I don't know why they let people sell them. I didn't sell that stuff, but anyway, I would never put my fish in a live well if somebody had put Rejuvenate in it. But anyway, how to keep them alive? Let's go back to your question. I'm sorry, I got off on that.
Yeah, because like the thing is, I don't have I know like a lot of people install aerators and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have an aerator on my boat, so I usually put ice in it, put it on recirculate, and then I'll fill it again every now and then. But
get yourself a portable aerator.
The little $10 ones?
Those little ones that have the hose that go into it or whatever, and just get something that pumps air into your live well. Okay, that's key. You've got to have oxygen going into that live well.
Couldn't you just like pump new water in, or is that?
No, they'll use it up too much. A full you won't be fishing. You'll be keeping your fish alive, is what you'll be doing. So I used to fish John boat tournaments where we made our own live wells out of coolers, and you just get one of those that has, you put the pipe in there with the hose in it, or with the little attachment, and then run the clips to your trolling motor batteries, and it uses such a little bit of power that it won't kill your trolling motor. So pump your
so is that
what?
Is that like, because I know like legit aerators are pretty expensive.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the expensive ones. No, I'm cheap.
Right, so you're just talking. Okay.
Yeah, just something that'll get air into into your live well. Number 2 is, this time of year, use ice. You want to keep it. I have one of those little floating thermometers, and you want to keep your water. I like to say below 72 degrees is what I like to keep mine. Okay, but 75 is still fine.
Right.
And then you want to put an additive in there, because if you're throwing ice in there, a lot of times your ice will have chlorine in it, and just the ice melting in your water will kill the fish, because it's letting chlorine. The chlorine will kill your fish. And so those additives, that Catch and Release and Please Release Me, has that chemical in it that gets rid of the chlorine.
It eliminates chlorine.
Instantly. So another thing about the Catch and Release is it has a natural sedative in it from some plant they get down in South America, and it sedates your fish. You can't OD these fish, but it will calm them and keep them calm, so they don't beat themselves up against your live well, and they're really, really not stressed at all. if you're not familiar with the share lunker program, it's in Texas. When you catch a fish over 13 pounds, you can donate it to the share lunker program, and the Department of Natural Resources comes out, or Texas Fish and Wildlife comes out and takes your fish. You keep it alive. They take it and they put it in a tank, and they haul it back to wherever their hatchery is, and they hatch it. They use the eggs from it that year to hatch more eggs, and they use the genetics from that big fish.
That's smart.
But the way they keep it alive in the tank is they basically use catch and release and dump it in there, and they give it so much of that additive that it causes the fish to go belly up. But it totally, relaxes the fish, and every once in a while you see the gill plate just flare, just enough to keep it, breathing. And they do it naturally. And then when they get there, they put it in regular fresh water, and within a minute the fish is fine and ready to go. So. But I'm trying to think of anything else. That's usually what I do. I don't use peroxide. There's a video on Bass Resource that shows you the inventor of catch and release, and Please Release Me actually has a whole video on how to do it, how he does it. And they go to the extreme, and it's a great extreme because the fish come out perfect, and they're not going to die. They'll last even in the hottest weather. But you just had, they have a cooler in their boat, and I've been in their boat. They have a cooler in their boat that's full of ice before tournament, and they just keep chunking ice in their live well the whole tournament. So,
do you the ice? Do you kind of just freeze big gallons, or do you?
I do Gatorade bottles.
Ice?
I actually freeze Gatorade bottles. A lot of people use
that's what I do.
Actual ice, but I like to freeze a Gatorade bottle because it lasts longer. So.
And you just put them in a cooler, because mine always end up melting after in the middle of the day. But.
Yeah, I put them in a cooler. And hopefully one day these boat manufacturers will start making insulated live wells, because that would be really nice, especially for summertime trout fish or summertime tournament fishing. So. Yeah.
Eliminate the ice problem.
Yeah, you'd be able to keep it cooler longer. That's why I like making my live wells out of coolers. I get those big white ocean, the saltwater coolers, and I'll make a live well out of it.
Yeah, your Triton came with a live well, right?
Yeah,
That's not homemade. Okay.
No, not a very good one, but I actually added. And another thing is if you can add a circulating pump,
Right, my boat has the recirculation pump.
No, I'm talking about a circulate, not a recirculation. A recirculation pump actually pumps more water out of the lake and into the live well. Am I right?
No, I'm talking about the one that circulates the water you have in the live well.
All right, yeah, and
it has one that pumps fresh water in, and then it has one that pumps the water that's in the live well over and over again.
Okay, and what I do halfway through the day is I refresh that water. If I'm using that catch and release, I can go a long time without doing, putting fresh water in there. And so halfway through the day, though, I like to get that water out of there and put fresh water in, and then
okay, so halfway being like 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours. And you'll get this film on the top, and that's no big deal, because that stuff actually aids in the fish producing more slime, so they're not going to lose their slime coat. But the slime that comes off in the live well.
The foam, you said?
Yeah, that little foam stuff. The foam that you see on top when you're using an aerator.
Okay. Don't they have stuff called like foam off?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I never had a problem with it.
All right.
So, biggest limit I've kept for a full day was 25.5-pound limit in a cooler live well.
Wow, that's insane.
And so,
cooler.
And they did fine. So.
Yeah, that's the only bad thing if you get into. It shouldn't be too much of a problem with spotted bass, but when you get into like the double-digit fish and all that, and you don't have a divided live well, they get pretty cramped up in there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we had a big cooler, and I actually put saran wrap around the sides to keep them from jumping out when I lifted the lid. You lift the lid up and they jump out the sides.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of videos on those igloo or the coolers, and you can make some really cool like live wells for the money.
Yep. I used to build electric boats and sell them for the electric only lakes around Atlanta, and that's how
awesome.
I would build live wells like that. I mean, they'd be decked out. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Sweet.
And then gas prices went up, and I couldn't afford to drive to my mom and dad's house anymore. So. But anyway, all right. Anybody else got any questions? So I can talk about that forever.
I got a friend that's trying to get on, so I'm gonna block.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's about that time. It's 14 minutes after. So, anybody been hanging out and wants to jump off, let somebody else on. That would be great. That would be great. If I can't get a hold of Paul, let me. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent real quick and check something. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm looking at my email real quick. I'm looking for something kind of important. All right. One of the things I wanted to make sure I did tonight was say hi to a guy named Daniel. He's one of the regulars on these hangouts. His name is Paul, and it's his son. And evidently, Daniel's a pretty big fan of mine. So I wanted to say hi to Daniel, just in case. I'm hoping he's not gone to bed yet. So, if your daddy is still awake, tell him to get on, and so we can chit chat. So anyway, how awesome is that? Let's see. Bass Assassin. I see you ask a lot of questions on my videos, don't you? I see that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I see that logo all the time. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one of my sponsors. They're Penetration Hooks.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I really like their logo, and I just kind of use it on everything. I'm getting shirts and hats and everything made with their logo. The stickers on the back of my laptop. They're probably my favorite logo from all of my sponsors. So.
Yep.
I tend to use it a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You know, I've got a friend who's in the hangout. I don't know if he wants to ask this question, but I'll ask it for him. He lives on Lake Lanier, and he fishes it a lot. And I was always wondering about the whole. You know how if you have I think you guys were talking about this when I wasn't in the hangout with the top water and what line to use. He uses a frog rod. With braid, and he was wondering, Lanier has, how it has really clear water most of the time. Penetration hooks.
Hold on. All right, say that again.
I really like their logo, and I just kind of you know how Lanier has really clear water, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then he uses a frog rod, and he puts braid on it, and he was wondering, what did you think about using a spook on that same rod? I tend to use a little bit lighter action rod for better casting, but
yep. The thing is between the two is your frog rods. Typically you're throwing your frogs in thicker cover, so you can get away with a braided line and stuff like that. Unless you're throwing it out.
Would you bend the hooks out on a spook?
Yeah. On a spook or on a frog?
On a spook with braid and a frog rod, wouldn't you? The hooks.
You have no. It depends though. It depends more on your rod than it does your line. My fishing partner throws his topwater spooks now. I'm on Clark Hill, and our fish school up like they do on Lanier. If you're throwing it on like a medium action rod, like a crankbait rod, you won't bend those hooks out. And I love a braided line on a spook with that type of a rod because you can throw it a mile. And when you're chasing schooling fish, you got to be able to cast a long ways. But once you get that much line out, if you don't have braid, you got a ton of stretch in your line that you've got to get out before you can get that hook penetrated. And so he's able to get a good hook set at a long cast with that braided line. So that you have to kind of weigh the difference. I wouldn't throw it on my frog rod. Heavens no.
Too stiff.
You come back with the bass's lips and it's still hooked up to the spook.
Each little treble made a hole in his mouth.
Exactly. So, but I mean, I'm still using my co-poly and he'll wax my tail on those long casts every time if he can hit his target because he tends to miss a lot. But
I use mono, and I guess maybe that could be why I'm missing fish because.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stretch.
But it doesn't. It makes the bait not sink. So.
Here's a trick. Get you some paraffin wax, and just a little ball of paraffin wax, and put it in your tackle box in its own little container, or own little compartment because it'll mess up everything else. But take that paraffin wax. You buy it in the craft section of Walmart. It's just clear wax. Is all it is. And you just coat the first 4 feet of your line with that wax, and it'll cause your line.
Make it buoyant.
Yeah, it makes it float.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Never heard of it.
I used to use beeswax. I still do. I still have some in my garage, and I use it every once in a while. But paraffin wax works pretty good. So
sweet. I'll have to try that.
One of them old timer tricks, I guess.
Do you do that with braid or fluoro? Or
I'm pretty sure you could probably do it with either one of them. Braid floats pretty high anyway. But my copoly I do, because my copoly will sink after a little while because it's got that fluorocarbon coating, so it'll sink a little bit, and sometimes it'll drop my spook's nose down in the water. So
yeah, and then you.
What's up, Dean?
Yeah. Who's that?
Dinkle.
Hey, what's up, man? So,
I just got off the river.
Cool, man. Cool, but yeah, that little wax trick works, and there was another thing I can't remember. Some people will put a little tiny bobber, I can't remember what they're called, strike indicators from a trout line up in front of their line to float their line up, and it also makes it look like the bait fish is chasing something else.
Oh, a little. Oh, okay.
It has to turn the bass on. So
interesting.
Yep. Yep. All right. Who else has any questions? Like I said, I can't have this many people on there and nobody talking but me. Do what now? Go ahead.
I said I have a question for you.
Okay.
You guys were talking about night fishing earlier.
Yeah.
And I've always been told, whenever you're fishing with jigs, it's real important you have to be a line watcher because it's hard to detect a bite always.
Mm-hmm.
What method do you use to determine, with a light strike, undetectable, when to set the hook in the dark?
I am not a line watcher. The biggest thing is I try to make sure that I have as little of a slack line as I can get. And so I'm always going to have my rod up at about 10 o'clock, and I'm always going to try to keep it as tight as I can get, and because usually a bass at night, in my experience, is when it hits a jig, it hammers it. And so it's usually not a light bite. But if it is, you're feeling for something different. Usually they'll pick it up and swim towards the boat, and you don't feel them. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I don't feel my jig. I got a couple of videos out where I'm like, I don't feel anything, and then I set the hook and there's a fish on it.
I've seen that.
And so, that's what goes through my head. Unfortunately, on video, a lot of things that go through my head, I end up coming out of my mouth. And so that's usually what goes through my head when I don't feel something. I'm like, wait a minute, and then I just reel down and I set the hook and it's on there. But the biggest thing is to keep that line, and let me see if I can do that. You got your rod right here. You want to keep that line in that semi-slack state to where if he does hit it and your line pops, you can actually feel it on your rod tip of a good rod. You won't be able to feel it on an ugly stick that's made out of graphite, stuff like that, or made out of fiberglass. But you can feel it on a good graphite rod. And so, that's the biggest thing, is just make sure you maintain that line. And then when you don't feel something, reel down and see if you can feel them swimming with it, and then hammer it home. So that's why I hate night fishing.
I've not got a lot of experience at it, but it's something that I'm going to start doing.
Yeah. My other thing I hate is the depth perception and the crazy people on the lake. So
yeah,
I almost ran into the back of a pontoon boat going back for a weigh-in once, and that's because his rear light was on, but it was so dirty you couldn't see it. It was like an old pontoon boat. You couldn't see the light until
That's my biggest fear.
Yep. You really got to be careful. And I don't fish at night by myself. Mainly because that's my second set of eyes, and I did not see that pontoon boat. And my fishing partner reached over and tapped me and said, "Look, see that boat?" And I'm like, "Whoa!" So it's just
that terrifies me. Like, I don't want to night fish because you're going down the main lake and you're 45 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have much time to react to a pontoon boat that's right in front of you.
Yep, it's tough.
I hit houseboats a lot. just trolling. Like houseboats are horrible because sometimes you never think those things are gonna move, but they just like one shifted right out into the front of me, and I was trolling. I just bumped it, and me and my partner fell off the boat. We dropped our rods in the water. Everything just went over.
That's scary. That's scary. Yeah, it's not fun, especially on those really high traffic lakes.
Yeah, we're on Eufaula with gators. Gators aren't fun.
That tournament, I almost ran into the back of that boat. It was on 4th of July, and so we had fished.
Oh God!
We had fished a tournament during the fireworks show at 4th of July, and that was the dumbest thing I ever did. The cool thing was that when the cops had a roadblock up the road, and were checking people for DUIs, and they just let all of us with bass boats just drive on through because they knew we weren't drinking. We were fishing a tournament. So, but yeah, that's a fun tournament. We have this one. It has a big fish pot, and it doesn't get handed out to people unless they catch one over 8 pounds. And annually, it gets up to about $5,000, $6,000. Or $5,000 pot.
That's on. Is that on Clark's Hill?
No, that's on Jackson. So,
I was gonna say an 8-pound largemouth on Clark's Hill. That's kind of.
Yeah, it's unheard of. Yeah. The biggest ones I caught this year, and this spring was the best spring I ever had. Was like 7.5 pounds.
Yeah, those videos, those were awesome.
Yeah. Shoot, I got so lucky. I just got into a pattern that held up for weeks. And I just had to find the fish, and once I found them, it was just game on. So, I just, one of those things. I hope it happens next year. You'll see some more good videos in the springtime. Well, the question is, where in the heck do those fish go in the rest of the year?
Why don't you fish more tournaments on Clark's Hill if you fish it so much?
Because my full-time job that actually pays my bills is on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
I work 40 hours from Friday night to Monday morning.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would love to fish tournaments just to see, but there are too many really good sticks on this lake that are 10 times better than me.
On Clark's Hill?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a different lake. If I wanted to fish professional tournaments, I would want to move away from this lake and go fish, Tennessee lakes or something like that, because blueback herring lakes.
Yeah, herring lakes are so different.
They're so different, and I keep trying to convince people of this, especially, you get people like, and I hate to name drop, but you get people like Kevin Van Dam that hates this lake, and you got people like Gerald Swindle. I heard him say he got beat like a rented mule,
That's because they just burn the bank and fish shallow, and they don't.
Well, you got to throw blueback herring lakes, and I'm trying to try not to get off on this tangent, but blueback herring lakes, you have to throw just about everything you know about bass fishing out the window, and because they become offshore fish, the
timing's all off.
Yep, I've caught them on top water, suspended in 124 feet of water.
I've never done that. But.
And it just largemouth, big largemouth, and it just because the blueback herring live out in the middle of the lake, and that's like cotton candy to the bass, and so they're going to come out to the middle of the lake, and you just got to know how to fish them out there. And if you don't, and the other thing is blueback are very nomadic; they move around a lot. And
they'll be in Yeah,
and a lot of times they're in these little bitty schools that just run the surface. And so they're hard to detect on your fish finder. It's just so many different things that just make it tough. So if I wanted to be good at any other lake in the country, I'd have to go elsewhere to go fish. So
yeah, like everyone on Lake Murray right now for the Forestwood Cup, they're like all the weights were so low. Like everyone had a bunch of people only had 1 or 2 fish.
Oh wow. Yep. Yeah, and that's a good example too. You guys watch the. Hold on a second. Who's making all that noise?
I think it's me. Sorry.
You're loud. but watch the weigh-ins at Lake Murray. Okay, Lake Murray is a blueback herring lake, and it's so much different. Everybody wants to go fish topwater, and they're waiting for these overcast skies, and the best topwater are.
Middle of the day, sunny. Yeah.
Sunny, high bluebird skies with 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, and you will fill the boat with topwater fish. So like I say, you just got to throw everything you know about bass fishing out the window and just go fish, and it's crazy. But anyway,
Hey,
So, Gene, I finally got a chance to get on the lake today.
Yeah.
And actually catch some fish.
How many did you catch?
I caught a bunch, actually. Well, not a bunch, but for me it's a bunch. After watching that buzzbait video, I decided to, I don't know, I guess use one. And, man, they were tearing it up today.
It's amazing what happens when you slow one of those things down, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, you know, and I've you know, fished them like that before, but I don't know. After watching that video, I guess it just, I don't know, I guess I just wanted to go fish one, you know.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if you can you see my screen?
All I'm getting is your voice.
Oh man, I wish I could show you this picture, but I'll post it on your Facebook. I caught some good fish.
That'd be cool.
Can you not see anyone?
I can see some of you, but I don't know what the deal. I can see you, Emil. I can see you, and that's about it. All the rest of them, all I can see is their avatars.
Why is that, you think?
I don't know. YouTube and between YouTube and Google Plus, you never know. So it's a
maybe
strange.
you have to be a Google Plus member or something.
Yeah, that may be it. They may need to have your picture or something. I don't know. They're strange.
Well, I can tell you I'm pretty. So.
Well, dude, I'm glad you're fishing a buzzbait, though. You know, that's kind of the way I want my videos to do, is just to show people enough to let them go out and have confidence that they can actually catch a fish.
Yeah.
On what they have in their box, you know, it's just, you know,
it's weird. Like I used to be. I feel like when I was a teenager, when my dad had a boat, I feel like I was a much better fisherman when I depended on him to find the fish.
That may be it. They may need it.
And now that I, you know, have my own boat and everything, it's really hard for me to find fish. You know, I can fish. I can do all the techniques.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as finding the fish is difficult, I guess. And I know I've only been doing it for less than a year, you know, by myself. So, you know, I'm sure I'll get better at it just like anything. But
yep. Time on the water. That's the most invaluable thing. And then just trying to. My big thing is my memory sucks, and so trying to remember things and situations and stuff like that, you know, it gets really tough, and for me. So one of the things the guy I took pre-fishing this last week for his tournament, you know, he said you're one of those guys that just goes to a lake that you've been on every day and you fish it totally different the next day. And I'm like, yeah, because I can't remember what I did the day before.
What lake was that?
So there's Clark Hill. I throw everything I know about Clark Hill out the door every day that I go fishing, and I go fish it like a brand new lake every day. And so that's why I think that's how I'm able to find fish on that lake. Is just not doing the same thing twice. Sometimes you have to do the same thing twice, but you do it in a different area or something else. So, but I just I've gotten into this habit of doing it, so I'm gonna turn it. Alex, I turned you down just for a minute because you got a echo, but it'll catch up. Your lag will catch up in a minute.
Okay.
But not you, Alexander, not you, Alex.
Okay.
I got two of them on there.
See, that's why your videos are so helpful to me, because, like, when I go on Bass Resource, for instance, and I read all of that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And man, I just do not comprehend it. I can read it for days, and you know, I'll watch one video and I'll learn. It's way more beneficial than me reading 20 paragraphs.
Yep. And I'm right there with you, because my reading comprehension is horrible. I've got a 12-year-old son that can read Harry Potter in as fast as anybody I've ever seen in my life, and he'll tell you exactly what the story is and everything about it. And I just can't do it that way. And that's the reason. That's the biggest reason why. One of the big reasons there's so many reasons why I started making these videos, but one of the biggest reasons is that we learn more with our eyes than we do reading.
Definitely.
And so I saw this 6 years ago. I started thinking about doing videos, maybe even longer than that now, but I just saw the whole internet thing going towards videos, and knowing bass fishermen and how most of us are very lazy, and don't like to read that much, I was like, man, I think I can do this video thing. And I've been teaching, on and off doing, with Boy Scouts and church and everything else. I've been teaching for years, and so I kind of developed my way of doing things, and that's how I do it. And I don't care what anybody says about it. It's how I'm going to do it. So.
Well, man, you're a great teacher.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I have a question about dammed rivers. Okay, and I don't know how many of you guys have or fish out of a dammed river, but or maybe a lot of rivers are dammed. I don't know. But okay, so there's an app and there's a website. It's on my lake. It's called TVA. You can go on there and you can see how much water they're pulling.
Yep.
Okay, so tonight it says that they're pulling 60,000, and I'm assuming that it's gallons. Like what does that mean really? I couldn't find anywhere online where it talked about it. Like for instance, I'll look at it right now. It says okay, it says 60,000. It doesn't say gallons, but I'm pretty sure that's gallons. Okay, and that's like the average outflow. And then on Gunnersville, it says about 40,000. I'm assuming gallons. Like, does that mean that there's 10,000 gallons of water moving per hour? Like, I don't know.
What's I'm trying to get mine here. Hold on a second. I have it on my phone. I just had to pull it out of the cloud and put it in. Let's see if it'll open up. I've been having trouble doing it.
Is it the same app? It's TVA?
Yeah, the TVA app. I love fishing Gunnersville and Pickwick and stuff like that, so I have that app. So anyway, and it says, I can't get it to pull up, but it says GP what? GPH or GP what?
Yeah, it's GPH.
So it's gallons per hour.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what you're looking at is when you're looking at the Pickwick one where it says gallons per hour, that's how much is going through the Pickwick Dam.
Right.
So it's how much water, and so if you want to know the bass get really active when there's a lot of current.
Right.
And so you want to look at how much is coming, for let's say for
Wheeler.
Let's do Wheeler, or let's do Wilson. So since I know off the top of my head what lakes on either side.
Okay.
You know how much is going over Wheeler Dam or Wilson Dam, and you know how much is going over Wheeler Dam, and you can kind of gauge how much water is flowing through that lake.
Okay.
So through experience, you'll know how much makes a lot of current. And once you get that current flowing, once there's current flowing, those bass are going to position themselves on structure to where they're feeding. It's an optimum feeding spot, and it's usually right in the front of a hump or a point or something like that, where the bait fish start to get washed over top of the bait. So it sounds like somebody's in the kitchen.
It's the Gunnersville guy moving around a bunch. Fast assassin.
Oh yeah, my bad. That was my cup. My bad. I didn't even know I was making all that noise.
Thought you were in the kitchen. But anyway, so the biggest thing is when you're fishing, keeping your mind or write down the inflow and the outflow so you can get an idea. And when the fishing's really good. Remember a couple of springs ago when it rained so much, they had every floodgate and every lake open.
Yeah.
I set up on a hump or on the leading edge of a ledge. It's where I did that ledge fishing video, and I mean I sat there for 2 days straight, and we caught 160 some odd bass without moving the boat more than 40 yards any direction.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so it was just every other cast with a Carolina rig or whatever we were throwing, because those bass were just stacked right there on that leading edge, because that's where the best place to eat whatever was coming by.
Yep.
So if I should have showed it in the video, I'd throw it up there and I'd be dragging my Carolina rig. I'm like, there's a rock, there's a bite. And the same next cast, there's a rock, there's a bite. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what can happen. That's why I love the Tennessee River, because when you got flow, man, the fishing is on like crazy.
Yeah, I got on some strike the other night too, and it was fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but then you get into our lakes. I got a Corps of Engineer lake, Clark Hill. When they're pulling water, you can't even tell. It's 71,000 acres,
Yeah.
and you can barely tell there's current. The only way you can tell there's current is when you go to a bridge, like you do on Gunnersville. You go to a bridge and you just sit there, but the bass aren't there. But you can catch the snot out of crappie, you know.
Right.
But you know, I'd move to Tennessee tomorrow if I could.
You don't catch bass on bridges?
I do, but just not very much on that lake, on my lake.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were talking about Gunnersville.
No, Gunnersville, man. I'm all every bridge in the world. Or in Gunnersville, I'll fish in a day.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I have a suggestion. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, that's all right.
I have a suggestion for your videos, and I don't know if like you're able to do this or not, but so like when you're filming and you have the view that's at the front of your boat, and you have the view that's like the big tall view, right?
Yep.
Like for instance, I kind of thought about this when you were doing the buzzbait video, because it is a topwater bait. Is there any way that you can like angle the camera so we can like see like what you're casting to? And like when you catch fish, is there? I don't know if you would have to get another GoPro camera to do that or not, but to kind of have a view like maybe like sort of kind of behind you, so you can see what you're casting to and actually see when you catch fish. I think that would be
you talking
really
about
exciting.
Kind of like that the high angle, but closer.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but closer because I feel like you do the high angle view when you hook a fish or stuff like that. I think you like edit it when you you know what I mean.
But you want me to use it more?
Yeah. Because I feel like I'm trying to think of on other videos. It would have been really nice to see what you were throwing at.
Yeah. That's the reason why I've gone to that view itself, is so people can see. But like I said, this is only the second video I've used it, and but knowing that, I'll definitely try to use it more when I'm casting the stuff, especially when I'm casting the things you guys can actually see. Because when I'm out in the middle of the lake,
you can't. There's nothing.
There's nothing to key in on. But another thing I'd like to do eventually is to have another GoPro set up on my fish finder. Just on my fish finder, so you guys can see what I'm doing. I have 2 right now.
I thought you had 3. Okay.
I might get a 3rd one here shortly. A GoPro Black, because I want one to put up on that high pole as a remote. And
I can see that being a pain.
Yeah, it is a pain in the neck. And so
I get 20% off of them. So I work at Academy part-time.
The Hooked Up Network is getting a deal with them right now because we're about to do some stuff for them. So.
Oh, there you go.
But I'm gonna get one and see what happens. That's the biggest thing, is I need one with a remote, and also I like the Black because you can leave it on, but when you go to check your files, they actually split the files up. With the Hero 2, you let it run for 30 minutes, and you've got a 3 gig file you've got to upload onto your computer, and it takes forever. With the Black, you can set it up to where it resets it starts a new file every few minutes or so. So that helps. So, and I can just put it up there and leave it on and not worry about it. But then it means buying new batteries and all the other stuff that I have already for my 2s. That's why I don't want to get rid of those, because I've got all the stuff I need to make. I'm one of the few people around that's my main camera. That's the camera that does the sound. That's the camera that does everything. Everybody else has other higher, more expensive cameras that they're using, or has cameraman. I just use my 2 GoPros, and I've learned I've modified the things and invented my own camera stands and stuff to work for the way I do things. So I hate to move that pole closer to me, because the minute I do that, I'm gonna whack it with my fishing rod.
Oh man,
I'm gonna break something.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Gene.
Yeah, man.
Why don't you do like a little hat cam thing then?
Because have you watched my recent video, my buzzbait video?
Yeah.
My head is always on a swivel. I'm always doing this. You guys would get seasick if I had a hat cam. Just because fishing on a schooling lake like Clark Hill, my head is always on a swivel, and even when I'm talking, I'm never looking at the camera. I'm always looking around trying to figure out where the fish are. And
yeah, that 2-arm fish catch was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was awesome right there.
A buddy of mine that I guided this last spring. He texted me and he let me have it. It's like, how in the world?
I don't get why like you had enough confidence to pick up another rod in one hand and actually.
Well, I have a Super Spook Junior. It's a clear one with a red hook that I use for schooling fish. And it's just got the front hook is red because I want them to have a target to aim at when they're coming up at it.
Makes
And so I always have that rod laying on my deck in one spot with the bait laying over the side of the boat so it doesn't get hung on anything. And it's what I call locked and loaded. And it's always there because I fish a schooling lake. And so it's always sitting there, just like Lanier, for a meal, Lanier, the same thing. I'm going to have that thing locked and loaded. And so when those fish started schooling right next to the boat, I said it. I said, I got something for you. And I grabbed it, and I just chunked it out there and pop, 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 pop. It's just always locked and loaded when I'm fishing that lake. And so
I don't know if it's where I'm fishing, but I actually don't see schooling fish that much on Lanier.
I see it out above. Well, they'll come up schooling on your baits. Hold on a second.
Sometimes you won't even see it though.
Right. Yep. Trying to figure out who has that really bad noise. But yeah, sometimes you don't even see them, especially on Lanier. They'll come in school on your bait, or you'll see them. You'll get to the point where you'll be able to hear them, and you're like, oh, that's a bass, and you'll turn your head, and they'll be schooling, 100 yards away.
Right.
You'll get to that point because they do school. You just haven't gotten accustomed to being able to hear them with the waves and the wind and everything else. So
I'm almost to the point where I can tell the difference from a bass hitting the water than like a stripe or whatnot.
Yep. I've actually got a video I'm going to launch next week that I filmed 2 days ago that's about what a fish sounds like, and it's not so much a teaching video. I'm like, because I've got 2 videos out where you can see the fish popping the surface behind me, and I get these comments like, oh, at seconds, at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I saw a fish schooling behind you, or coming up behind you, or bass coming behind you. And so my video is basically, hey, it may not be a bass, There are other fish that break the surface, and I realize by those comments that a lot of people are wasting their time chasing the wrong kind of fish because it jumped over here and it jumped over there. And so you get to the point with time on the water where you can tell that, oh, that was a bluegill, or oh, that was a carp, so with an educated guess that that's what that type of fish is, and you don't waste your time chasing them. And what's one of the phrases I use? You can waste a lot of time bass fishing for carp. You really can. And so over time, that's what you're gonna. That's kind of your ears will be able to tell you. Oh, that was a bluegill, or oh, that was I love being able to tell what a crappie is when they come up surfacing. And so.
That's impressive. You know all those.
Well, it's just because I spend a lot of time on the water, and then I kind of know the tendencies or what time of the day that they're going to come up. And carp will. Every time somebody comes on, I have to mute them for a minute. Carp completely clear the surface most of the time, and I don't know if it's a mating type of deal or they're trying to locate each other or what, but they'll splash their whole entire body down in the water. And I've gotten to the point where I'll be fishing with somebody. Oh, did you hear that? I was like, yeah, it was just a carp. And you just keep on going and keep fishing. And then crappie do a little double splash, and bluegill will pop, or they'll do another double splash because they got flat bodies. So when they come up, you can hear them go pop pop when they splash. And bass will come up several times because a lot of times those bass will miss that bait fish, or there's 2 or 3 in a school, and you'll hear them splash, but they splash to the side. They come up and they actually make a splash off to the side, so you see them go pop, 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 and as they're chasing bait fish. The thing I'm most proud of, though, is I'll be going down the lake full bore, and you'll see some hybrids on my lake. You'll see hybrids or stripers schooling on fish, and I'll be able to tell which schools have bass in them, have largemouth in them, because it's the schools where there's actually a fish that comes. You'll look at them and you'll say, you'll see bodies of fish coming out of the water, and when you see the bodies coming out of the water, it's the largemouth trying to compete with those stripers, and they're usually the big fat football largemouth that run with the stripers all summer long. You know? So, and then you stop and make 2 casts and hope you catch one.
Hey, I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
A couple of weeks ago, I joined in one of your hangouts, and you had a lake map, a topography map.
Yep.
Having a hard time finding them, man. For a couple of lakes around here. Do you have any suggestions?
The best thing to do, and there's a lot of lakes that don't have them, just don't have them. The Navionics web app. It's on the internet. Just do a Google search for Navionics, Navionics,
okay.
And do a Google search for their web app and look and see if it's on there. And that's a free version. It doesn't cost you a dime. And then go ask your local tackle stores or some of the local bass fishermen. You know, because there are a lot of lakes that don't have them. Okay. And just hope and pray that it does. The ones I have are all major impoundments, and so these guys. There's a lot of companies who've made several different lakes about them.
Okay.
But those small ones, if you live up north, a lot of the small lakes up north have them. So, but
earlier in this hangout, you were talking about. I think in September you're going to take a break from doing that because you're going to be teaching. Parents actually how to teach their kids how to fish.
Yep.
Is that something you do privately? You want to share any of that with us?
You will see it in a video in about 2 months, hopefully. It has been a 4-year in the making video. It's one of those things that I've been going through my head, and I've been brainstorming for years and asking questions online and trying to get all the information to try to do it together. So this thing I'm doing, it's actually at my church. Is kind of the dry run for the video. I've already got a lot of the video already shot. It's just the instructional part of it I don't have shot yet. So, but I got 4 kids, man, and they're cute as all get out. So they're going to be on the video, and so but yeah, you'll see it. You'll see it. It's just one of those things I've kept quiet for so long because it's not out on the internet. Nobody's ever made one to teach parents how to teach kids how to fish.
Right. Well, I've got 3, and every day after work, we generally go fishing. The first thing out of their mouth when I walk through the door is, "Where are we fishing at today, Dad?"
Oh, I know. Believe me.
When we get there, they won't receive any instruction. They won't hear anything that I have to say.
Nope. Well, my kids are to the point where I have 4 fishing rods on my back porch. And I try to keep them working all the time, and they'll actually they'll grab them and go dig for worms in my compost bin, and from there they'll go out behind the house. And the house is the Savannah River, and we've got a place where a creek comes in right behind the house, and all they have to do is just go there. And if they're not drawing water out of the lake and making the water temperature too cold, they'll catch fish there. You know. So the biggest thing I teach is I guess I can share you a little bit is teach your kids how to cast before you go to the lake without a hook on, you know. And number 2 is don't take your own stuff unless they already know how to fish, because you're guiding them, you know, and you're going to teach them how to fish, and you're going to get them untangled, and you're going to be fighting with tangled lines and knots and all kinds of other stuff the whole time. So if you're not there to fish, it will be a lot less stressful. So those are the 2 big things. But there's a lot of little things I do with my kids, and I've seen other people do with their kids that help reduce that stress that's going to be in that video. So it ought to be pretty cool.
So when are you quitting? Like I missed the first part.
Well, I can only do these on Thursday nights for right now. So for Saturday or for all of September, I've committed to teaching these classes every Thursday night. So.
Oh, okay. So you're just gonna not do the live hangout.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna do the live hangout. I'm not quitting. What are you, crazy?
Well, yeah.
This is a
I don't
great
know what
ride.
I would do.
I got a question, Gene.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Up in Massachusetts, summertime bank fishing, real small pond. I can't get anything for the past 2 weeks.
Has it been hot?
Very hot, a lot of vegetation. There's only one inlet, and no matter the type of bait, how it's fished, time of day. I've checked water temperature, variables, anywhere I can get on the bank, and nothing.
Whew. It's hard to say. You know, summertime, I kind of think of it as a winter, as they get in a funk when it gets really hot. I'm assuming it's a shallow lake since you say it's got a lot of grass.
8 to 10 feet max.
Yeah, so you're small. So my guess is that they just are just in that summer funk where you either have to drop it right square on their nose, you know, and scare the crap out of them to where they open their mouth, or you're going to have to fish so slow that you think you're going too fast. You know, it's just, you know, what I always say is if you think you're going too slow, you're going too fast. You know, my two baits that I throw in any type of that situation in the summertime is a Mojo rig trick worm, or finesse worm, not trick worm, finesse worm. Dragging it over top of that grass really slowly, or I'm going to throw a punching bait, something that I can punch down through that grass, and those fish are hanging out in that shade and just sucking in the oxygen that grass is creating, and they're not feeding or anything else, and you got to just keep punching until you drop one right in front of their nose, and they're like, oh, and they grab it.
All right,
don't have your expectations high in the summertime, or you'll quit fishing.
You know, I've been using a 6-inch finesse worm on 10-pound fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
And then I use a beaver bait on 15-pound fluorocarbon.
Yeah, just don't have your hopes up. I mean, I hate to say that. Like my mystery tackle box video I did on Oconee. 11 hours I caught 4 fish. You know, I didn't have at the beginning. I even said I can't believe I even came to this lake in the summertime because it beats me up every summer. And so I went 3 days last year without catching a single fish on that lake. And I fished it I was camping, so I fished it from sun up to sundown, and I didn't have to come home and take care of kids or anything else. And I left defeated, but you know, it's just one of those things. It's summertime. As soon as that water temperature starts to go down, though, the fishing is going to get really good. And unless there's no fish in the lake, you know. I know there are, but you know, it's summer. I hate to say that, but the bass get into a funk and they just kind of hang out, and it's hard to catch them. Another option is to go at night and throw a buzzbait or a jitterbug or something like that, because they're more apt to be active at night. So
I just switched to the bait caster, so at night kind of scares me.
Go back to your spinning rod. Yeah, go to something you know and just go have fun, you know. But throw something on top water so it doesn't get all caught up and stuff like that. Boy, you got that Massachusetts accent too. My gosh. My mom's from West Newbury, so.
I did boot camp at Fort Benning, Georgia. So I can switch to the southern draw.
Oh, so you're bilingual too, huh?
I can get ready to fix up some southern draw.
Man.
Are you still offered guiding service?
I do. When people ask me to, I do. It's one of those things. It's kind of a side thing that's kind of happened because of these videos. I hate to say no to somebody who wants to go fishing with me and pay me for it. You know, and so I do from time, and I just don't do it full time, or I'd stop making videos. So just a matter of getting together and getting the time together and stuff like that. But get with me on the side, get with me on Facebook or wherever, and we can talk about it, and I'll let you know what my rates are and stuff like that. So it's pretty cheap. I mean, it's pretty cheap. So
I'm fixing to drive to Georgia then.
Actually, I got a client that comes down from Massachusetts once or twice a year, and I take him out, and we go 3 or 4 days. It ain't cheap though. For the 3 or 4 days, I'm not cheap. So you know,
it's worth it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, comparatively, Gene, you're really cheap.
Yeah, I just like to teach people. I mean, the difference between my guide service and everybody else's is Bubba knows his lake, and everybody hires him and expects to go out and catch fish. I tell you that catching the fish is a side product. I can't guarantee it,
right.
Especially on a lake that I've never been on. But I like to go teach people how I break down a lake I've never been on. You know, the first time I ever fished Eufaula, I was guiding, and I caught a fish on my 4th cast. So that's my claim for fame on Eufaula. I love that lake now, but it's just the difference between me and them is I don't go to catch fish. I go to make sure that you leave knowing a lot more than you did when you got on the boat. So that's usually my hope. And if we catch fish, that's awesome.
I have a question. I know you probably don't want to talk about it too much, but with your whole guiding thing. But when you do that, do you go on your boat or do you go on the other person's boat?
I've never done it in somebody else's boat, just because I'm more comfortable with my stuff, and I usually have enough tackle for both of us to experiment and figure things out.
Right. Okay.
But I'm not saying I wouldn't. I just never have done it.
Okay.
So.
No, I just wondered.
Yeah, that's kind of how I
have a question.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
What time of day and what type of day do you usually fish your double fluke rig?
My double fluke rig is mainly for offshore humps and ridges and things like that the fish are up and they're actively chasing bait fish. Because what happens is a school of bait fish will come by, and the bass will come up and start busting it, and it scatters those bait fish. And what a double fluke rig imitates is one bait fish trying to get away and the other bait fish just following it because it's trying to find safety too. And so mainly just schooling stuff. And I know a lot of people that fish it around cover and things like that, but I don't because I tend to get it tangled up too much. But
what time of day?
Well, all day. It just depends on what the fish are doing. There's not a time of day. I get up and I say, and I see fish schooling up on bait fish, and I'm like, if I have one tied on, I throw it. So it originated in these lakes that are around me that are offshore schooling lakes years and years and years and years ago. So it's kind of the reason I use it. But it's a good rig. I mean, you catch a lot of good fish with it. You can catch 2 5-pounders in one cast. It's pretty neat. So.
That's crazy.
You just hope your leader is strong enough to hold the second one when they start playing tug of war. But, all right, I don't want to be the only one talking.
Hey, Gene, what's the? I have a question. Okay, so on Wheeler Lake where I fish, there's a lot of spots that a lot of people fish, right? And I'm sure it's that way on a lot of different lakes.
Yeah.
But what do you think the best way? Say if you get there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you've already seen, 1 or 2 people on the spot that you like, you've caught fish, and do you think that you ought to just bypass that, or do you think you should go ahead and fish it because you fish it differently? You know what I mean?
For me, I like to think that I can get the bait into places that they can't, or fish it a different way than they can. I'm not going to pull up on them if they're fishing, no.
Well, no, you would come back.
But when I come back and they're not there, yeah, I don't mind fishing behind somebody. Do I have confidence that I can catch them? Yeah. A lot of times when you know there's a school in the area and you catch 2 or 3 and they stop biting, leave and come back in a half hour and see if you can't catch another one, because usually you can. Usually that school, if that person's fishing and they leave, that school will take 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to calm down, and you can go back and catch some more. That's what we call a milk run. In a tournament or something like that, or even a day when I'm fishing just for fun, I'll have 10 or 15 different places that I know fish are at, and I'll just start making that run and just going back to that same area. I do it with crappie all the time. Pick 5 spots, put your marker buoys down, and bounce between the 5 spots. And because a school of 1,000 crappie will get turned off after you catch 3 or 4. But if you leave them for 20 or 30 minutes and come back, you'll catch 3 or 4 more. And so you just keep doing that and make your runs. Same thing with bass. So it's just a matter of just letting them rest.
So that's what was going on this morning. I was fishing, with the buzzbait, and I decided that I was going to throw a buzzbait all day, and then I went to work and came back and fished at night, or at 4, and I threw a buzzbait all night. And so sometimes I find when I do that, I just, you know, I'm gonna fish this bait, you know, and sometimes when I do that, I catch a lot more fish than switching and trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I haven't caught squat all summer. It's been rough, and then since this cold front just came through here in Alabama, it's kind of the fishing's kind of picked back up for the last couple days.
Yeah, I kind of wished I'd have gone out today, but I had to take JJ's boat back to him. Man, I'm kicking myself because I bet you the fishing was wonderful this morning.
Oh, it was, man. For me anyway. And I talked to some folks, and you know, they said that it didn't they didn't do any good. You know.
Well, you're either on them or you're not, so it's just one of those things.
And I always throw your name out there. It's like, man, you watch YouTube? You should check this guy out. He'll teach you a lot. But you know, some people out here, you know, they already know it all. You know what I mean? Some people just aren't willing to learn. You know, and I think that's, you know, I don't know, that's ignorant on my opinion.
That doesn't drive me as nuts as those people who are really good fishermen and don't want to share it with anybody.
Yeah, man, there's some people like that out there too, man.
Yep.
Oh.
A lot of people.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why I am doing so good in YouTube.
Yes, you are.
So
we thank you, man. You're great.
Yeah, no problem. I hate to toot my own horn, but that drives me nuts. I had a neighbor who didn't fish with anybody, nothing, and he was a really good tournament fisherman, and he just wouldn't share information with anybody like it was top secret, and it just, dude, the fish move. They're not tied up to a log that you can go catch them all the time on one certain bait, you know. But some people are that way. It drives me nuts. So that was another motivating factor, you know, reason for me to make videos. Somebody needed to teach you, because a lot of people ain't. So anyway.
It makes sense.
Cool.
I'm gonna bug out, man.
It's 11 o'clock. I'm gonna bug out too. I want to go to bed. I gotta get up and go to the FLW championship tomorrow and hang out at the expo. So.
Excuse me. Alex.
Yeah.
Alex, could you hang in this hangout for a second after everyone hangs up? Could I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the broadcast. Let me do my exit. So, real quick. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out on the Hangout Q&A. It was a little rough at times, but we did all right. Like I always say, visit bassresource.com for the answer to all your questions about bass fishing. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit like button if you like this thing. I'm sorry it's 2 hours long. I guess you're just gonna have to watch it. So take care. Bye.